Hello. Hi, Leonard. I'm Dana Beal, and I have my guest here, Leonard Szymczak, and I'm excited to have him here to Project Illumination, my podcast. And just briefly, I want to remind you, or if you haven't heard us or me before, the Project Illumination is my project that is dedicated to shining light and love into the world and rebuilding relationships in the workplace, but also in the world, in all relationships. And my book, The Illuminated Workplace, Shining Light on Workplace Culture, came out a year and a half ago. And it gives you many ideas on how you can have a better relationship in the workplace, but also in families, in communities, in governments. It's needed everywhere. But I am really excited that I have Leonard Szymczak here today. Hi again, Leonard. Hello.
Really great to be with you, Dana.
Thank you. Leonard, I was just thinking about when we met, and it was 2008. So I think that's set like 17 years ago. Is that right?
That's right. We met in 2008.
So we've known each other a long time, and Leonard is a fellow author, but I'm going to read to you some of the things Leonard has done. Leonard holds his master's in social work and he's licensed in social work. He's an award-winning author of 8 books, a TEDx speaker, a psychotherapist, and a life coach. For the past 40 years, he's worked both in Australia and America as an educator, a writer, and a therapist. He was director of the family therapy program at the Marriage and Family Center in Sydney, Australia, and later worked with the Family Institute at Northwestern University. He's been in the forefront of men's healing for the past 35 years, and his latest book, co-authored with Rick Bronick, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, is Power Tools for Men, a blueprint for healthy masculinity. And boy, I think that's really needed. His TED Talk on fatherhood, In the Age of Heroes, Where Are the Fathers, was viewed over 110,000 times, and it's probably gone up since you wrote that number. Leonard lives in Orange County, California, where he writes, conducts seminars, and counsels clients. So welcome, Leonard. You've accomplished a lot.
Well, I feel grateful that I had the opportunity to do many things in my life, just like you, Dana. I think we're both feel committed and called to make this world a better place.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that both of us feel mission driven. We have an underwriting goal to better our world while we're here. And so that compels us to keep moving forward.
It
So
sure does.
yeah, and you and I've talked, frequently over the years and even been accountability buddies at times and encouraged each other to keep going. So today I thought it would be interesting since you're so studied and so versed in masculinity and men dealing with masculinity in today's age, because some of those roles are not working anymore, or maybe they never worked, but we just kept on using them. And so our topic today, Leonard, is to talk about, and we haven't really planned this very much, but I'm just going to have a conversation with you about men at work and the roles that men play. So, what would you say, Leonard, is one of the problems that men are facing today?
Well, I would say men are often very confused because at one point we knew very clearly these are the qualities that made up masculinity. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and I was taught, be tough, be independent, self-sufficient, don't play sports like a girl, and don't talk about your feelings, particularly fear, sadness, grief. We can be angry, like on the football field or the basketball court. We can be angry and aggressive. That was an emotion that was validated, but some of our other vulnerable emotions we kept hidden. We were taught to be armored, armor ourselves, and don't show the world that we're invulnerable because that means we're being weak. And if we're weak, people may perceive us as being like a girl or a woman. And when I grew up in Chicago, that was not that was something to really look down upon. But we're changing. And, Dana, that men, particularly in the workforce, we're really called upon to expand our skill sets. We have to become more emotionally connected, more aware, more relational, and be able to communicate more effectively. That's requiring different skill sets than just fixing, being Mr. Fixer, problem solver, stoic, unemotional, non-relational.
Well, it's interesting that you said that because just today I was looking at the new Gallup 2025 poll on the state of the workplace, and 79%, one of the highest numbers, are disengaged at work. So what that really says is kind of what you're saying, that the workplace culture needs to change and leadership needs to change, and men in leadership roles need to change, and women are taking stronger roles. And so, just to add to what you said, as a woman that has been a professional in the workplace for so many years, I often see men being very fear-driven kind of leaders and ego kind of bosses and operating from what I call artificial power. And I don't think they're really truly trying to be bullies in the sense that I think that's part of what they believe they need to be, listening to what you say. What would you say about that?
I would agree. And I want you to think of the movies that portray men. Usually there's a lot of violent movies. Men are portrayed as, we can be righteously indignant, fight the bad guys. And men are portrayed as, again, being righteous, forceful, stoic. I mean, they can be punched all over, but they're not crying. They're just toughing it out. And I think some of these qualities and values that we see on the movie screen, even today in movies, we think this is what it really means to be a man. However, there's a lot of changes that I really see bringing hope, particularly men being more involved in childcare and raising children. This helps us become more empathic, more relational to our children and to our partners. So there's a shift that's going on, but it's a slow shift. There's more men in the traditionally feminine professions. There's more male nurses these days, more men moving into teaching and other professions that were one time traditionally feminine.
Yes. And when you said that, it made me think about how women are raised. And we were taught, to be Cinderella or Snow White, waiting for our prince to come. And when I first started in the business world, I was actually accused of being condescending because I was doing training and men felt I was being condescending, but I was there to teach them. And so women learned how to, what we had to do was kind of play a game. We wanted to dress and be powerful like men, but we didn't want to sacrifice our femininity. And I think women, just kind of like men are changing, women are seeing their role. And I really believe this is the time of the rise in feminine consciousness as part of this shift. But Leonard, I don't think feminine consciousness is just in women. What would you say about that energetic level of consciousness?
Well, I think there's a tendency to look at male qualities in female qualities. Yes, there are brain chemistry, genetics, DNA, etc. However, if you look at women and men, let's take emotional expression. I mean, is expressing sadness a feminine expression and not a male expression? I mean, to me, being able to access all of my emotions means I can be fully human. I think we're talking about how can we be fully human so women can have their voice, and that's the change I've seen with women. Women are having more of a voice, more getting empowered about being in the world, and at the same time, men are learning to become more self-aware and cooperative in the workforce as well. So I see we're just called to be better human beings rather than, women are called to be masculine or men called to be feminine. No, we're just called to be human beings.
Right. And I think what the point I was trying to make with you and I have talked about this, women can contain or embody some of the masculine energy, and men can embody some feminine energy, and that helps balance it out because women are becoming more vocal and they're standing in courage and self-awareness and really discovering whether we're a male or female or LGBTQ plus, whatever we are, each one of us, like you were just talking about, in our humanity, we are all individual souls. We're all equal, but we've been, we don't know how much is genetics and how much is our environment, but we've all grown with different ideas of who we need to be. But what we're really talking about is being our true self, getting to our authentic, deepest soulful self. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I also want to highlight the changes. Do you know there are more women attending college these days, more women getting higher degrees these days than men? So I think women's voices, and if you look over the last 20 years with women's liberation, there's a greater calling for women to change, to become more empowered, which led to college, more education. Men's calling hasn't been as I don't know, forceful or as dramatic in terms of the call to be more in some of the nurturing fields. So, when my kids were born, Dana, this goes back into Australia when I lived there, I had to write a letter to the hospital asking permission to be in the delivery room. Could you imagine it? I mean, that's ludicrous today. Now, after take time off from big games to be in the delivery room with their kids. That's how much we've changed.
Yeah.
And more change needs to occur, but I see more men, more fathers involved in child rearing, which requires more nurturing, empathic skills with their kids.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. And so one of my themes, and it fits right into what we're talking about, is that I believe we need to replace fear with trust and compassion for one another. Whether you're male or female, whether you're in a leadership position, whether you're, whatever your role is at this time in your life, we all can see our human qualities if we're really honest. And so this conflict and divisiveness that's going on in the world, it's reached such a peak of divisiveness. And I feel called to remind people we are all on this planet together. We are interconnected. And whether we're male, female, or whatever we're doing in the world, we're still an individual soul that is absolutely equal and interconnected with each other. So in our leadership positions, whether you're male or female, I often say a leadership chart doesn't really define your role in the workplace, because authentic power is what really will change the workplace individually and culturally. So what are some traits that you think that men could, through self-awareness, become more, I start to say emotional intelligence. That's one of the traits. What are some traits you think that men that would be helpful if they could, through self-awareness, could embody? What are the traits of being a really good leader?
Well, I use this metaphor. So I like basketball, and so I'm watching the basketball playoffs. And when I'm counseling men, I use the metaphor. So if I want to be a really good basketball player, I've got to be right-handed and left-handed. I got to make right-handed layups and left-handed layups. And so the right-handed layups, in which we were used to, is I'm problem solving, I'm stoic, I'm focused on fixing problems, I'm strong, I have great values. It's a sense of strength and power. That's the right arm. The left arm really is about connecting with my emotions, being able to connect with other people's emotions. Emotional intelligence is not just being intelligent about my own emotions, it's being intelligent about the emotions, about the people who I'm relating with. And so being able to have those emotional connections, because emotions are the bond that creates us in a relationship. So my encouragement for men is to be both right-handed and left-handed. We can make right-handed layups, left-handed layups, it's a matter of integrating both the right and the left.
That's a really good way to put it. It's kind of like integrating the right and left brain, our creative side and our thinking side.
Absolutely. Hmm.
We need both. And you know, we keep focusing a little bit on the workplace, but just in our families and in the world, the more we can access those parts of ourselves that can connect with other people, the more effective we'll be. The better team building in the workplace, for example, and a family gets along better when people are connected emotionally and sharing their feelings and speaking honestly. But according to you and most men I know, that has not really been promoted in in a man's world. And
That wasn't part of my upbringing on the south side of Chicago.
no.
No, I was taught that if you've got a problem, use some duct tape. You know, if your leg hurts, put some duct tape there. And if I got a broken heart, let's put duct tape around my heart and get myself all duct taped up, and then I won't feel it.
Well, and I learned that though you're going to be successful at work, you still need your Prince Charming. So I've cast a few men in that role, and then of course they can't keep that up, and it doesn't work. So there are a lot of myths that we've all been subject to that have helped created us to portray ourselves the way we want to be seen. But I think the ego is just a self-created identity from all these different things that happen in our lives. And you're a therapist. You work with people all the time on getting to their deeper self and discovering what it is. What would you say in the process of self-realization or self-awareness? What are some of the blocks to that? Why is it so hard for us to, men and women alike? Why is it hard for us to look within?
Well, part of it is our training. Do you know, women, girls, when they're growing up, played with dolls. They were interactional. They were playing interactional games, whether it's playing house, playing teacher or doctor. Boys were playing sports. So we were competing. It was outside of ourselves. And usually, I think Terry Real, a psychologist who's worked a lot with men, he said girls start disconnecting from their emotions in their adolescence, maybe by the time they're 12 or 13. Boys start disconnecting from their emotions by the time they're 6 years old. So we start disconnecting from our emotions when we're really young, meaning we're told, don't cry, don't be this way. And you know what is sad? You know, I work with clients, and I hear men talking about the messages they receive from their fathers. And so if a man, when he was a boy, cried, he might get beaten or says, I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
And so it teaches us to shut down, to armor ourselves. What prevents us is sometimes we're so armored, we don't even know we're armored. How can I be close in a relationship if I'm armored? You can't go to bed at night. I mean, it's like what Prince Charming. Hopefully, Prince Charming takes off his armor before he goes to bed.
Yes, and I think that's a very good description, armor, because I've known a lot of men that have armor. In fact, if you try to talk on a deeper level, they don't even know what you're talking about. And on the other hand, I'm single, so I have lots of friends, both male and female. And I would venture to say that men really like having female friends because they can talk to a woman in a way they can't talk with other men. When they are on the golf course or, you know, at the bar or the basketball game or wherever men, you know, gather, they rarely talk about their feelings. And so it's not that they don't have them, it's what you said. They're armored and it's not appropriate very often. And I think these men's groups that some people are in, including my brother, who is also graduated in psychology, and he's really an evolved person, they really help men to open up. I wish there would be a trend to do more and more of that because it would help men in their families and their workplaces.
Well, you know, I'm a great advocate. I've been in men's work since my very first men's group was in 1984 in
Wow.
Sydney, Australia. And I've been in men's work ever since. And to me, it's crucial that men become part of a council of men, a
Yes.
group of men. And so I've been involved with this an online men's group. We meet every Tuesday morning. We have men from France, Germany, Canada, Mexico, and in America, obviously. So it's a small group, but we get together, and the goal is to support each other in the many changes that are occurring within our lives and society. I think men must get involved in men's groups or support groups so that we feel support, so that we can be supported in taking off our armor.
Right. Um, I think that's absolutely wonderful. And that just goes to show it's not just American culture, it's worldwide human beings. And we can see that in some of the destruction of the male ego that wants to take over other countries. I was just watching the movie or the documentary about Alexander the Great in 300 BC. That's what men were doing back then. And I have a vision. I believe in a shift where we learn to be cooperative with one another instead of this conquering, taking other people's land, getting all the money, the greed that's driven so much, in our world, in our country, in our politics. And I think, Leonard, you're on the right step, working with men, helping men to discover their true selves and put down their armor and have some compassion and recognize our common humanity. So I know that people could learn a lot from what you do. Your TED Talk, tell them the title of your TED Talk. I said it, but
Yes, it's In the Age of Superheroes, Where Are the Fathers? I was a stay-at-home dad back in 1984 when stay-at-home dads were as rare as pregnant men, meaning there weren't very many
right.
Stay-at-home dads. Now, being a stay-at-home dad, it's changed since COVID because a lot of men stayed at home, did their work virtually. So there's a lot more stay-at-home dads, and it's more acceptable for a man for the roles to be shifted. So a man can stay at home, look after his children. Yeah, both partners can be working. This is really very important. And again, it's part of the shift that men are
Yes.
going through.
Yes.
The highlight is in the book that Rick Bronick and I wrote, Power Tools for Men. We highlight 8 dimensions for the healthy man in terms of developing it. And we use an acronym, classics. C is for connection. L is for love, A is for authenticity, S for spirituality, S for sexuality, I for intention, C for community, and S for sovereign king. So these are the qualities that I believe that men need to develop in their lives so that we can be whole.
Well, those are wonderful qualities or traits that everybody can develop. And, men and women alike need to discover, and it's an ongoing process, our true selves. There are blocks to it, like our shadows, where we feel shame or we feel, a need to protect ourselves. But you and I would say, are both dedicated to helping people do that, to overcome the roles that we were taught, because these roles really are a shabby imitation of who we really are. When we connect with our deepest self, our soul self. And I've said this to audiences all over the country, and people get it. We are more than the roles that we play. And so I would highly recommend men to read your books, listen to your TED Talk. If you're in the workplace and want to know more about rebuilding relationships, my book, The Illuminated Workplace, is, I believe, very helpful, because I went through living in the workplace for all my life and at all different levels, and coach and consultant for CEOs everywhere. So, Leonard, tell people where they could find you if they want to get a hold of you and where your books are available.
Sure, they can go to my website, leonardsz.com. So it's probably the easiest to leonardsz.com. That's the easiest one. Or they can go to roadmaphome.com. That all gets to the same website. And then I have a lot of free videos, resources that people can have access to, download articles to give them information about themselves. And there's a whole, Rick and I have now made 9 webinars, of 45-minute webinars on each of these qualities in our books. They're free. They can go to our website, go to seminars under Power Tools. They can have access to all, I think we have 9 free webinars, 45-minute webinars, chock full of wonderful information that men can draw upon or women can draw upon to learn more about the men in their lives.
I think that's outstanding, and women, yeah, women can learn from them too, and they're free. That's wonderful. Well, I'll put that information in the podcast and in the YouTube channel so people can find you. Say your website one more time.
Leonard at that was my email, Leonard at leonardsv.com, but the website is leonardsz.com, leonardsz.com.
Thank you, Leonard. Well, thank you so much today for being with me on this podcast. And thank you, everybody that's listening, and continue to shine light and love in the world. That's what we're here to do.
I want to give a shout out to you, Dana, because you know, I've known you again since 2008. I just want to highlight for the viewers here is, you know, Dana, I've always been impressed. You're a woman who walks the talk. I've seen you go through some difficulties, some crises, go through the crises to always hold the light in your heart to illuminate your path. So, you know, you're a woman who really speaks your truth and illuminates not only your life, but illuminates the life of others. So I want to give you a huge thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. And I would say the same to you. So we're mutual admiration club. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.